Now, you know, you mentioned that we continue to have this debate over regulated or non-regulated, what caused the problem. But now, I'm going to take issue with this idea that most of these institutions weren't regulated. At some level, they were regulated. I mean, if you're talking about the investment banks, which, you know, if the investment banks hadn't engaged in what they did, I'm not sure we'd even be here today. And they were regulated by the SEC, by the CSE program. And it was SEC that in 2004 let them water down their capital ratios, or went from 12 to 1 to 40 to 1. And, you know, AIG's gone today. I mean, not gone. I mean, they're subject of a massive bailout. Now, the reason I bring that up, not to say to get in a conflict with you, but we've still got this idea of licensing and registration of mortgage originators. And, you know, you and I, we've been on the opposite sides of that. Y'all have opposed registration and licensing of mortgage originators. You wanted to just do it for the mortgage brokers, not for those that under the regulated institutions. But Ms. Bartlett, as you said, or Congressman Bartlett, 40-something% of the bad actors were working for regulated institutions. I'm talking about Golden West, Countrywide, IndyMac, Washington Mutual. A lot of them were at banks. And I know y'all are continuing to resist my efforts to extend that to all mortgage originators. And I hope you'll take a look at this in hindsight, because y'all have resisted these efforts for 3 or 4 years in subprime reform, and just say, look, we're there. I'm just going to ask you to continue to look at that. Because, look, if you don't, you're going to have 40% of the problem, or, you know, it could be 60% of these folks that go from one institution to another. They make bad loans in one state, they show up in another state. And it's a big loophole. Let me ask you this. When y'all endorsed the TARP plan, did you not have the same concerns that I expressed from day one, that why would you want those assets to come into the government, you know, to be managed by the government? Wasn't the expertise with the institutions? Wasn't it far better to use covered bonds or lending or preferred stocks to inject the capital into the institutions?
Congressman, we endorsed it because there's a crisis, an economic crisis, and we think that you have to get capital back into the system to restore liquidity. Secretary of Treasury and others have proposed a solution, and we constantly advocated to advance that solution on all fronts and to add to it to allow for multiple options. There was a colloquy on the floor, and for example, right at the end, that then permitted this, or at least referred to investing equity in the institution. So we
and we, you know, that was that section, I think 118, which we actually insisted on. But
so we don't see it as one solution. We see it as advancing all fronts to get liquidity back into the system, and it hasn't started yet. There is not a dollar that's moved yet.
I just want you to remember that, you know, there's a big difference that people seem to be missing, and that's if the government buys these mortgages and mortgage-backed securities and credit default swaps, they got to manage it, and the institutions themselves aren't able to manage it with all their expertise and experience. How do you expect the government to do that? Mr. Ryan?
I'd just like to make one comment. We are very supportive of the TARP program for a different reason.
Yeah.
We feel that a major problem in today's financial sector is not only illiquidity in these troubled assets, but price discovery. Yeah. And the one result which, and as Steve said, we haven't seen this yet, but our hope is that through the purchase program we'll have transparency, people will know what an asset is worth, we'll actually have a real mark that makes a difference. We won't be debating mark to market.
We'll know
what the price is.
What about a private equity? What about a private auction, or where the private sector has to participate at a certain level?
I'm in favor of that.
As opposed.
That's too